Good morning and welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Justin Wells, got Ian Boyd. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Twitter, pop over to YouTube real quick. Give us a like, give us a subscription. And no matter where you're watching from, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I don't think we're not on LinkedIn. That is a feature that this website gives us, but we haven't used that quite yet. No matter where you're watching, make sure you use the promo code IT1. Get yourself 2 months of Inside Texas access for just $1. It's been 3 years, little over 3 years, since it finally broke. Brent Zwerneman from the Houston Chronicle deserves a lot of credit for breaking that Texas is going to the SEC. They play their first SEC football game on Saturday. Soccer got their chance, lost to Mississippi State. Volleyball tomorrow night gets their chance in Reed Arena, I believe, against the Aggies. But Justin, SEC football is coming to the 40 acres.
We've arrived. It just means more. Starting Saturday. That's the rule I've heard. It just means more. Man, I remember where I was. I remember you and I were either on a phone call or we were texting or something. And it was like, hey, boom, this is happening. And remember Eric had heard some ruffles about it as well, but we didn't know for sure. And man, it just hit. Brent Zwerneman loves some John Sharp. He loves getting some of that information. Hey, let's throw this out and see how this works. And buddy, it worked. Give CDC a ton of credit, Kevin Eltife, Jay Hartzell, all the powers that be at Texas, I think, for this foresight and this move and the continuing dialogue that would SEC take Oklahoma without Texas? I love that back and forth on Twitter the last few days. I guess just because of OU and how bad they look. But anyways, SEC time, Mississippi State. I was actually at the Cotton Bowl when the last time they played. It was Ricky Williams. It was early. It wasn't that early. It wasn't the LSU game early, but it was earlier.
It was his last game, correct?
Yeah. And he went off. And actually, Mississippi State, their offense was not very good, but their defense was stout. Like they were a strong defensive team. And Ricky went for like 150 and did the Heisman pose in the end zone. And it was a little muggy that morning. I think there was a little bit of rain. But you know what? It's been a long time coming. Bring on the Bulldogs. Any team that's got a white English bulldog as their mascot, I connect with.
Once we get the ad read done, I'm gonna go find my wife's cowbell. My wife's from West Point, Mississippi, which is like 20 minutes from Starkville. So there's some state affinity. But she went to Texas. Luckily, we never crossed paths, or I would not be married. But she's in her spare time, she likes the Bulldogs, but Longhorns are definitely number one. But yeah, Jackie Sherrill ain't walking through that door. They're not castrating any bulls in front of the team. This is going to be a good one for Texas, I feel like. What's up, Ian?
Justin, I told my wife our next dog should be an English bulldog because they just sit around all day. And they guard your house, but they just sit around and they're friendly and they don't do anything. Because our dog's high energy and we don't have time for it because we have all these kids. So it's just awful. But then she told me, Justin, that English bulldogs are hideous and that she doesn't want something that ugly in her house.
Oh, no. Well, Miss Boyd's going to get a call. Speaking of all those kids, over your left shoulder, correct?
No, she's asleep right now. Hopefully remains so. If you hear anything in the background, it's this cat.
Lots of animals up there in North Austin. Brett, appreciate you joining. We're going to get to all the SEC stuff at the end of this show like we do every Thursday. But again, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. What we do want to talk about right now is something Ian wrote. And I know if you watched yesterday, Homer and Ian went through the ins and outs of the Briles Levy, the dissemination of the veer and shoot offense. I looked through that SB Nation article that you wrote about, or that you wrote 11 years ago, with the art and all that stuff, and the art of offense. It was a well-known title by Jason Kirk. But one of the things about it is it has evolved, but Sark has evolved as well. And whereas Levy tries to go to let me get my camera right, to the extent of the field, Sark sometimes keeps everything between the hashes. And as Roaster notes, good article this morning, that's what we're here talking about. Close splits can make a defense declare just as much as extreme wide splits can. Turn the mic on, Ian.
Sorry about that. I was trying to mute the animal in the background. Yeah. Actually, what's funny is that Levy does sometimes bring in close splits as well. I think because he worked with Lane Kiffin for a while at Ole Miss. And so he picked up some of those tricks, but obviously most of the time the nature of that scheme is wide. And there's actually like similar reasoning on both sides. Like I pointed out in the article, if you bring in everybody tight, then your outside receivers have wide open spaces outside of them. And if you Sark likes that because then his outside receivers can get loose. They can get off coverage. They can get down the field, or they're in tight if he wants to send them to go block a safety on a running play and make the cornerback tackle. They're like right there. So they can just go get them if they're, so inclined. Knowing receivers that can be pretty hit or miss, right? You get your Jordan Whittington and then you got your, not Jordan Whittington. But Levy, by sending everybody out wide, he creates all this space inside the middle of the field. And so it's in some ways it's almost just like a mirror of a similar philosophy.
To bring that to Texas, Deontay Foreman rushed for over 2,000 yards because there were lanes in the middle of the field and just outside tackle. Lake Seastrunk at Baylor rushed for however many he did because of the lanes in the middle of the field that line produced and outside tackle. So it does both those things.
Can you put up that power spread question?
Yeah.
No, Sark does not run the veer and shoot. The veer and shoot is wide splits with your receivers. And then the offense is mostly just tempo, power running inside, wide perimeter screens, and deep shots to a single receiver. And Sark's is bring him in tight, extremely diverse run game, zone running, power running, everything, diverse passing. And something I noted in the article is that these veer and shoot guys, they like to spread everybody out so that one guy is one-on-one, and then that guy just runs to open space, and the quarterback anticipates the open space he's running to and then just throws him into it, right? Sark is all about you got a deep cross and you got a deep post. And you put the deep safety in conflict, and whichever one he chooses, the quarterback throws the other one. So
I like how that question came from someone whose username is Power Spread. Like,
yeah,
that's good stuff going on there. Justin, kind of one of those. I'm curious. You remember Art at Stephenville and not the program, Varsity Blues, allegedly.
Yeah. They didn't show that movie in that town.
But how much has that offense evolved? Whether it be, and Ian, you mentioned this, and rightfully so yesterday, like you can look at Briles and the Trees on-field accomplishments, and they are accomplishments. And you can also look at the off-field disaster and recognize both for what they are. Disaster, heinous, all that stuff. Between the lines, it is influencing football and continues to. Outside the lines, bad people. And Jeff Levy has a job. Either way.
I don't know how much of that we still see, Joe. I mean, we see it with Levy, but that tree has dissipated so much Kendall Briles has some of that. Sterling Gilbert, Cal, some of that. Levy obviously runs it, but it's not as prevalent as it was 10 or 15 years ago, in my opinion, at least to Briles' level. Go ahead, Ian.
Didn't I give you a free Substack subscription to America's War Game?
Yes, you did.
You're not reading it. You're not reading
it. I actually saw the Veer and Shoot stuff like 2 days ago.
It got copied because Josh Heupel
retweeted it. No, Josh Heupel. Yeah, absolutely. Well, is Heupel more Veer and Shoot, or is he more what Mike Leach did? Because that's what he was doing at Oklahoma.
No, he's more. He's way more Briles. And then he's got his own tree now of Veer and Shoot guys. So like Alex Golesh at South Florida and GJ Kinney at Texas State.
From Central Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is,
and Rhett Lashley's now.
I feel like there's a clear distinction of who is keeping the arc of the offense and then who's keeping the Lane arc. Because I feel like Lane has put his own spin and now has his own tree on it enough to where it has influenced that offense. Because Lane Kiffin's a really good offensive coach. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. He brought in Kendall. He learned from Kendall. And you see Lane running a lot of those principles at Ole Miss. But at the same time, you're still seeing some regular spread. I don't want to say regular spread because that doesn't exist, but there seems to have been a Lane and Briles split almost. And I feel like where would Heupel fall in that? And we'll get this back to Texas in a second because we got to bring it back.
Heupel is more Briles.
That surprises me.
Because
he was ingrained in that late stuff, man.
I know. I mean, your guess makes a lot of sense, but it just happens that that's not the way he's gone. Heupel is all about the wide splits. You watch him against Oklahoma, and he was getting, Oklahoma was in 3 deep flyover, and Heupel was like, okay, I'm just gonna run this over from the wide splits. I'm just gonna try to power it up the middle, which was the wrong idea. Did not work very well. Read about it on the Substack.
So to bring this Kiffin, back, let
me mention Kiffin before you do that.
Okay.
Kiffin has kind of realized the possibilities of the spacing. So like Briles was like, if I send these guys way out wide, then my deep shots are more efficient and my run game is more efficient. And I don't really need to do anything else. Kiffin noticed the wide splits and was like, there's a lot of things I could do in this space. I could isolate a single receiver for like an option route, like a pro style option route. I can move guys over here to run the ball over here. He's really been more creative with it. And so is Jeff Lebby. And so the tree that you're describing, Joe, that's kind of branching out from Lane Kiffin is a little more of like a ultra engineered spread that was influenced by Briles and not just the rigid Veer and Shoot.
Before we get to that, bring it back to Sark and some Nick Saban stuff. Let's knock this out. LC will tell us about Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Sugar Daddy, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Sugar Father sounds better.
I'm with you. But to bring this back to Sark, one of the reasons that I think you wrote this article is because those close splits were mentioned, I think it was by Saban at SEC Media Days, where it's like, just imagine you have 4 deep defensive backs. Yeah, you have your nickel, but he's closer to the line of scrimmage. So you have 4 defensive backs kind of, at that 10, maybe not 10, 7 to 12 yard depth. If you're in close, you kind of have to declare where those guys are going to be if Texas and if the Sark offense or any offense is in those close splits, right, Ian?
Yeah. It's harder to disguise who's going to be where, like you're saying, because they're all in tight, and you got to put guys where you're expecting them to be once they break out of the mass. And there's also like it's really hard to jam up and press receivers when they're up tight like that, which is another big advantage. Like in the veer and shoot, when those guys are way out wide, you can absolutely jam them up as long as, they're not going to run by your guys. If they run by your guys, then you're in big trouble. But if you're good at jamming them, you can do it with impunity. And you have the sidelines like right there, which is helpful. You can't jam up guys when they're up tight like how Sark does it, because you're just going to end up, they're going to cross patterns and your players are just going to be running into each other. And so it's really helpful if, say, you happen to like recruiting 5'9", 170-pound burners who are really good at running down the field, but aren't so good if they get jammed up, like a Xavier Worthy or a Devontae Smith, or here are the more recent guys that they've taken of that mold. Silas Bolden, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where even Sark said this, I think, yesterday on the SEC coaches teleconference. Like, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, and it makes it tough for defenses, especially if you can clear a pre-snap read for a quarterback in any offense in college. You're making life so much easier. Like, you don't have to do stuff in the NFL where you're like, okay, is that safety doing this? Is that safety doing this? Like, if you can give the picture before the ball's even snapped, you've kind of won half the battle. Justin, let's get to a recruiting question or two real quick. This one's from Justin. Heard Chase Sims isn't coming in this weekend. Do you still think he comes to take an OV? What's the latest on this one?
Yeah, we're checking on that right now, actually. I actually still think he'll take that official visit. When? That remains to be seen. They're going to still try to get him in this weekend, but it's something to watch. Look, they've got 2, maybe even 3 spots left on the defensive line for 2025. They've got Sharma and Charles coming in this weekend. I think is good. That's your foundation, but they're going to keep working on Sims. They're going to keep working on Joseph Mbachu and Walter Mathis, who's expected in this weekend. They're going to keep working on this defensive line because they're still evaluating as well. And so Chase Sims is a guy they like. Malcolm Simpson's a guy they really like. He's going to be back for Texas and Georgia. Just if there's any fluidity in this cycle, it's at the defensive line. So you just kind of take it as it goes. But understand, Kenny Baker is making progress with a lot of these guys. He's catching up on a lot of relationships he wasn't allowed to start until January and February. And Chase Sims is one of them. Texas went to go see him a week ago. They're very interested. So I think he'll still make it to campus at some point. I think he might even do it this weekend. Just come to Inside Texas and we'll keep you updated.
That is the place to be. Ian, actually, I can take this one. This one's about Nick Sanders from 214 TX Bronco. What happened to the young man who came from the baseball team and joined the football team? I've not heard anything about him in the running back room is thin. We talked about this a little bit last night. There are a lot of running backs on that. It's called the SEC Student Athlete Availability. It's an injury report. It's like in the NFL. And CJ Baxter, Christian Clark, we already knew they were out. Velton Gardner, he's out. Colin Page, doubtful. Trey Wisner, questionable. So that's a top 3 guy right there. 2 guys who weren't on that report, though, Jaden Blue and Jarrett Gibson, the baby rhino. So that's important stuff right there. But 214 TX Bronco, you're talking about Nick Sanders. He, I think, walked on to the football program. I'm trying to think. I haven't seen him on the sidelines. So
I remember him after that first practice. The very
Right, like
last running back in the line.
He doesn't look out of place. But there are a lot of guys they have in front of him. At the same time, we're getting to the point where when you got 3 running backs in that entire room who are shelled for this week's game, 2 are out for the year, like in the walk-on that has become a darling of this podcast and this YouTube channel, and even our own fellow Anderson Trojan, Paul Wadlington, like it's a tough look. And that's why Ryan Niblett, Justin, I feel like deserves a ton of praise for what he has done to maybe, I don't want to say stunt his development at wide receiver, but to take a pause at wide receiver to an extent and still be a guy who can factor in the running back room and score touchdowns even.
Tip your cap to that kid. He's being a selfless teammate. At the same time, he's not dumb. You want reps? Come on. We got a spot for you. That's kind of the mentality of this team. That's kind of the culture that they've ingrained. And so I think that's why you're getting Ryan Niblett in that regard. And listen, Ryan Niblett's one of those sneaky type guys. Like, you're not paying attention to him. He can go. Like, he can get it. And I think that's the biggest factor about Niblett is that he is fast and he will make somebody miss. He had a nice play against ULM. He's going to build on that. I love that the guy's opening up to playing some running back to help the team out. In the same breath, he is just like every other kid out there. They want to play so bad. You want to roll? You want an opportunity? Here it is. And he has jumped in and splashed. I'm telling you, before the end of the season, he is going to have a long, big play. That kid is a breakaway kid. It's a Keelan Robinson situation. It's a matter of time, and Niblett is going to be gone. Once he makes the first few guys miss, there's nobody catching him from behind.
I love this deal where Sark just takes like receivers and bulks them up and toughens them up into running backs. I mean, that's kind of what he did with Jaden Blue. I know Jaden Blue like technically played running back in high school, but like for like the first for the last couple of years of his high school experience and the first couple of years at Texas, I was like, they should just move this guy to receiver.
Well, it's funny because I talked to KJ Edwards a couple of days ago. That's the 2026 4-star out of Carthage. I was talking to him about usage, running back usage, and he said he loved the way Choice and Texas use running backs. He said because they use them as receivers as well. He goes, it's apparent on Saturdays when you motion a guy out or when you have a guy go out into the flat, they're not doing that you're not doing that as a decoy. You're an option. You're a weapon. And KJ loves that. I remember Javian Osborne talking about how much he enjoyed watching how Texas uses their tailbacks. And Ian's right. Like these guys can catch the ball out of the backfield. Tredarian Ball, one of my favorite tailbacks out of Texas High, committed to Oregon. He's playing receiver this year. He's been playing some wide receiver for Texas High this year because they have a really good running back in Javari Johnson, and also because Tredarian Ball can do that. I think it just makes those guys more valuable. And actually, I think you're going to see more of that out of the running back position as the NFL evolves. I think we're going to, because it's so by committee right now, you're going to have so many of those guys on a roster. Some of them have to be able to do things a little, add a little bit more to their repertoire. Catching that ball out of the backfield, making somebody miss, getting a mismatch on a linebacker, buddy, that's a third down chain moving type deal.
This may be a conversation for a different day, but unless you're Bijan Robinson, I feel like Texas understands that varying what backs they have on the field and keeping – there's no other way to put this – keeping tread off the tires, that appeals to high school running backs because they know that helps them in the draft process, or they're going to be told that helps them in the draft process.
They're going to play sooner too.
You're going to play sooner. You're going to do a lot, and you're also not going to – unless you're the best player on the team and the number one prospect in the draft, regardless of position, like you're not going to be worn down to, the very bare tread. So
you have a chance at contract number 2 also.
Yes.
It's not going to be for anybody but Derrick Henry. Contract number 2 is not going to be very good, but there's still a big difference between getting one and not getting one.
So. Contract number 2 is the difference in being vested, getting pension, and not being vested. Not getting pension. And to those guys that I've learned, that might be the most important facet of the entire professional sports realm.
Yeah, it's a big money, and players are getting more and more of it, and deservedly so. Kurt Barnett has a good question before we dive into a little defensive topic. If Arch starts, and we're waiting on Steve Sarkisian, he's got a Zoom in just about an hour where he may or may not give an update on this one. If Arch is starting, does that change how the Mississippi State defense schemes the Texas offense? Ian?
No, I don't think so. Maybe they blitz more.
Yeah, they would dial up a little more pressure.
That'd be the only thing I could think of. But if you do that, Sark's going to dial up a bunch of shots like the ones I described earlier, and Arch is going to let him fly, even if you got a guy in his face, and he's probably going to hit him. So they're going to want to play back with their defensive backs. They may bring a few extra guys, but whoever's back is going to be back. Quinn or Arch. Maybe further back with Arch, honestly.
One of the things that I was talking about this, Justin, I think with you the other day, and even some other members of local media, and I can't wait for it to be like really revealed. Arch is the same goofball that his dad and uncles are. Like he is the same personality. Like he's going through the media process like a little bit now that he's gotten a lot of extended action. And somebody asked him a question, and he's like, what do you think about Jarrett Gibson? And he just kind of looks around and goes, Gibby. It's just like a regular guy. And we've almost, I'm a little bit guilty of this too. Like, we've kind of put Arch on a pedestal a little bit just because he's Arch, and we don't get to talk to him. And then you see like all the stuff that comes out in like Omaha Productions and on the Manning Cast, like, and what you see in Cooper's social media stuff. The same thing happens with Arch. And then, by the way, like the rest of his family, he's really dang good at throwing the dang football. But Kurt, to go back to that question, it kind of depends on Sark, because remember, he looked at the play sheet and he looked at it with AJ Milwin. He goes, we're throwing the ball deep a lot, aren't we? He's got to dial some things up. I don't think a tight end had a catch this past week, correct? Or if they did, they had
I think Gunnar Helm had one catch.
Had one.
I think one. I think there was one target, or I think there were two targets. I think that Juan Davis may have also gotten a target. But I think Helm, it's the second week in a row that, because last week, 2 weeks ago, only one catch for Helm, one catch for one of the other tight ends. I can't remember who it was.
Juan caught one.
It was one. Yeah, I think Helm only had one this last week.
So it's fun to watch him. But we will get more insight in
that Michigan game. Screwed up a lot of defensive coordinators on Texas' schedule. They're thinking Gunnar Helm, son of a gun, or somebody else. And so it's really divvied it up and made Sark just that much more dangerous.
And then Ryan Wingo or Isaiah Bond or Matthew Golden are running free. Working man, I saw your chats. We appreciate the super chat. If you find something you want to get a question in on, let us know. Sugar Daddy, Ian, I'll send this one your way. How is Auburn going to beat OU this weekend? I feel like one of the keys is possession of the football. But curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's been Auburn's thing, right? They have like 50 turnovers through 4 games or something stupid like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't step on the roundtable pick too much. The roundtable is where I like to don the shades and throw some Norman's way. So I don't really want to spoil that, but since he paid $5, I'll just say that I made a commitment a few weeks ago, an oath to Oklahoma fans, never to sell them sunshine again after my mistake with the Houston game. And I will not be pumping them up in the roundtable either. I will stay committed to my vow.
Who's going to play quarterback for Auburn?
Is that in question?
I don't think it's in question, but I think every Saturday it's in question.
It may rotate.
Yeah.
Neither of them are good.
I still I'm still not sure that Peyton Thorne is bad. I know everybody. I know. I feel like everybody's been sure for a while. He was good 1 year at Michigan State when he had good receivers, and they
Didn't
could
you
play.
have Keon Coleman?
Yeah, he had that guy, and he had another guy too. And I still think he's like every other quarterback in college, where when they have NFL guys running open for them, they look awesome, and when they don't, they look like garbage. So and last year Ole Miss had nobody at receiver, and then their solution was mostly to go grab some blue chips out of high school recruiting.
Cam Coleman, Lambert Smith from
they got him from Penn State. Yeah.
Rivaldo Fairweather, who is really good tight end, receiving tight end from FIU. Like there are my road to glory quarterback plays at Auburn, and they make it easy on me in the video game.
They do have some guys. Well, it hasn't materialized yet. We'll see.
And that's why I think Peyton Thorne is not that good. So, oh man, Mr. Sorrell, always appreciate you jumping in. That you may be able to provide a little insight on what our next topic is. We had someone, Hornfish, over on the Inside Texas message board, looked at the player opposite who just wears one single 8, and that is Trey Moore. Barron Sorrell is a team leader. He's someone who's going to get picked in the upcoming draft, in my opinion.
Yes.
He plays that jack position very well. On the other side, starting has been Trey Moore. And I will admit, Trey Moore does not have the counting stats, 7 total tackles. None have been in the backfield. But Justin, like if you watch the Michigan game, and if you go to Inside Texas, it's a free story. You look at what an Inside Texas member, Hornfish, posted about Trey Moore in the Louisiana Monroe game. This is a player who impacts opposing offenses.
Yeah. We talked about this. I think there's 5 team stats, total team sacks, this year. And Trey Moore's, he was brought in for sacks, but he wasn't just brought in for that. He was also brought in to mesh with this defense, to kind of be that bridge between your veterans that you're trying to develop or getting developed and your freshmen, your young pups that are coming in, Colin Simmons, Zena Umeozulu, those guys. Trey Moore has been perfect in that regard. That he fit into that locker room seamlessly. That's what they wanted. That's what they needed. There's going to be – listen, Trey Moore gets sacks in chunks. He did that at UTSA. He's going to do that at Texas. He's going to get on that sack board at some point. That's going to happen. But it's just – look, it's a great problem to have because you go from not getting to the quarterback to perpetually getting to him this season. There hasn't been a close game yet. Ethan Burke, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, like there's so much talent there that he's going to get his. And so there shouldn't be any sort of worry or any sort of, anything like that. Trey Moore is making an impact. He is playing ball. And the only question I have is when is NCAA 25 going to update the settings? Because he's number 31 on our team. And as my son has pointed out, that is not number 31. Trey Moore is number 8. And so let's get it back to reality. When is NCAA going to update that?
Well, they also have Will Stone as being right-footed. So there's there's things they've got to look at.
They do.
Sorrell, yeah, I know. Mr. Sorrell notes he's been disruptive. And Ian, one of the more fun packages that Texas puts out there, you have a 4-man front of Trey Moore, Alfred Collins, Barron Sorrell, and Colin Simmons. You got at linebacker Anthony Hill and Jahdae Barron at your linebacker spots. And then you have, the rest of your regular defense, Malik Muhammad, Gavin Holmes, whoever you put out at the 2 safety spots, and then Jalen Gilbo at nickel. And both Moore, Sorrell, Simmons, Collins, like that's a fun package to deploy those guys in.
Yeah, sure is. Sorrell is really good at that when he gets to slide inside over a guard because he's so strong. So he helps make that thing hum. Credit to Mr. 88.
He had a PBU the other day because when General Booty completed the pass to General Booty,
Yeah.
it was Sorrell knocking it down at the line from playing three technique, I think. So
That was
and I put
Booty's
that.
best pass of the game, unfortunately.
I know, yeah. Completions are
Bless his
completions,
heart.
except when they're 7-yard losses or something like that. But Justin, overall, like no concern about what Sorrell has done. Like he's done his job
No.
and then some, just hasn't reflected in the stat
Aaron
sheet.
Sorrell might be the most consistent player on the Texas defense the last 4 years.
But for Trey Moore, as far as what he's doing, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, Barron Sorrell has been the most consistent defensive player in Texas program the last 4 years. Trey Moore, it happens. I'm telling you, it's going to come in chunks. And it's going to come when you need it the most. You know when it's going to happen? Red River. That's when it's going to happen. Georgia. He is going to bloom. And don't get twisted on the box score. Trey Moore makes an impact on the field and in that locker room and in the culture. He is a wonderful bridge for those edge players. He does a lot of good things. And so, yeah. And that's a good subject because we're at a point where we're looking for faults, I feel like. Because we always talk about the positives and negatives, but now it's like, okay, well, you got to kind of look for little things here and there. And the truth is, Trey Moore's doing exactly what he wants to do. And AR just nailed that. That's AR that's perfect right there. That's kind of the first world problems Texas fans are facing right now.
This is one of those things where, I mean, us three and Eric Naleen, we've been together since at least 2013 in some form or fashion, 2016 for sure. We're writing about a good team, a great team, a number one team, where we had to write about our guys able to read their wristband and get the defensive call right a few years ago. So we are in a different stratosphere now. But do I care? No one knows how good Texas really is until Georgia. They're good, but that will be the litmus test. And we'll talk about some other SEC litmus tests at the end of the show. Go ahead.
Michigan just beat USC.
Right.
Michigan against USC was the team that we thought they would be against Texas. So either they just weren't ready for Texas or Texas is that good. And they made us question Michigan.
I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think if you face Michigan after, say, if USC's in that week 2 spot, you get a different Michigan team in week 4 against Texas. Is the result the same? Probably.
Yeah.
Kind of unrelated, but if I'm a USC fan, I'm encouraged by everything I've seen so far, even in that loss. You get the win at LSU or against LSU. You're taking care of business. You blanked an opponent. So if I'm USC, even though Michigan beat you, I'm in good spirits. Going to go through a couple comments. Justin, I wonder if Niblett got any kind of assurances from the staff of being put back at wide receiver since there's a lower overall professional money ceiling for running backs. I mean,
I don't even know if Sark gives assurances. I think it's next man up. And I think this locker room is in a right now. They're just trying to get on the field. You got guys that are begging for reps because right now there's not a hotter team in college football and there's not a hotter ticket. And they just want to get on the field. I don't think they're thinking that far ahead. And knowing Ryan Niblett, I don't think he's that worried about it. Knowing Niblett, and we know these guys. We know a lot of these. There are a few receivers that would not take to this very well. Niblett, I don't think it's going to bother him at all. It's going to give him an opportunity to show what he can do. And so you might even carve out a different position for him, a different role, something that the NFL may view as him as different because he can run after the catch. He does a lot of good things. Well, I don't think there's any assurances. I think it's just you show up, you do your job. This is what we got you doing today. We'll worry about going back to another position, doing something else when we cross that bridge. Let's worry about Mississippi State, what packages you're in, and do you know the signals?
There's also I don't think he's thinking about it this way. I don't know. But if it's like my paths to making money playing football, if I'm Ryan Niblett, are, stay at receiver at Texas, but then to get reps to Justin's point, I got to fight with Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook and Matthew Bolden and Ryan Wingo and all these other guys and whoever comes in next, right? So maybe I would make more money if I became a star receiver at Texas and got drafted super high. I made a bunch of money there with multiple contracts. But if I can be a starting running back at Texas for multiple seasons, I can make a lot of money. And then if I get drafted at all, which is, you see what I'm saying? Like there's some sure thing money.
And there's
tape. It's not like Bijan was out in the streets begging for cash, guys. Like Texas running backs.
I look at it. You're putting stuff on film. So many kids think, well, I'm not going to get my spot, so I'm going to hit the portal and I'm going to go somewhere where I can get on the field quicker. So what are you going to do in that 6 months? Because you're not putting anything on tape. You're not putting anything on film. You're not working at your craft where people can see it. That's what Texas this is the opportunity he was given. He's got a chance to put stuff on tape. And he could be a poor man's Marshall Faulk with his stature, catching the ball out of the backfield, doing little things, doing both. I think this is just an example of, hey, Drew Kelson talked about it, Michael Griffin, Mr. Steal Your Reps. You do whatever you can in practice to get on field. And Drew talked about it last night. There are guys, if you worry about an upset, there are guys that are so worried about getting reps in practice that they don't have time to worry about an upset because they're too fixed on the focus on getting on the field now and doing what they need to do now. And so with Niblett, this dude's putting on tape. You think Keelan Robinson gets drafted if he doesn't have some tape? Last year, he wasn't in the rotation in either spot. But they got him in. They put the ball in his hand. They got him in space. They let him make some plays. Niblett's doing exactly that, and Niblett's got more upside than Robinson.
I agree, and this brings up another good question from Isaac Darden. I think Blue's hands are really good, but overrated. Some of his drops showed a lack of finesse with his hands.
I think it's
Ian, I'll send this your way, but Isaac, I don't think his hands are overrated. I think they're properly rated, and we know what their risks are.
Yeah, that's a good question. What were you guys saying? Lack of focus?
Yeah, it's not his hands. Jaden Blue has great hands. It's focus. It's that in that moment. And plus, Arch threw him a piss missile from about 6 yards away. And buddy, that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to catch.
With a linebacker coming downhill on him too, so he was going to have to extend, and then he was going to get rocked.
Yeah,
so
it's tough. But there have been some lack of focus drops. Like I don't think Blue's hands are overrated. He can run routes. He hadn't caught the ball as much as he needed to over the course of his past 3 years.
His yards receiving has been a subject in some of our text messages.
I know.
Because of squares and the things that we deal with. That's become a subject.
AR, when was the last time a quarterback went up to Ann Arbor and played elite ball like Quinn did?
Greg Krenzel.
You could make some arguments on the 2021 and even Will Howard, but the real answer is Justin Fields was 14 of 25 for 302 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Oh, my God.
And also added 25 yards on the ground. And that's when they were abusing a man defense at Don Brown. It was like, we're going to play man or die. And they died.
And he died.
They died. And that's why Don Brown is kind of back home at UMass. And I see you squirming a little bit, Ian, but I feel like I nailed that one because I was watching those Michigan teams in earnest as well.
We should do it.
That would have been mine answer. You could quibble because I don't know how hard it was for Fields to rip them apart in 2019, and it is kind of obvious as Michigan's defense was. I think it was even more obvious because of some advantages that Ohio State had at that time before
at every position.
Well. Also, in terms of espionage, there's a reason that Harbaugh got Connor Stalions, and it wasn't so much to gain an edge as to level the playing field. Ohio State
It
is
worked.
Ohio State is notorious for this. So yeah, Fields, but I think Quinn's was actually better than Fields, so you may have to
It
go back.
was. Fields was big played. It was 4 big plays, essentially.
Yeah.
Quinn was methodical.
Right.
Quinn was doing it, and I'm telling you, he's looking at that defensive lineman after he throws that ball. It's like, am I over the line? No, I'm good. Like, there was so much more finesse to Quinn. Quinn's, to me, was more impressive because I think that Michigan defense that they face in week 2 is actually really good.
Yep.
Justin, gonna go to you for this one. Running back value, college football greater than NFL.
Actually, it probably is. I mean, it probably is right now. It's just the NFL is just they're in a time period where there's the Bijan Robinsons, the Alvin Kamaras, those guys are just a little more obsolete now. There's just the running back committee is just a big deal. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, there is no running back by committee because there's no running backs. Because God forbid you draft one or sign one. That crap franchise. No, I think you're right. I think in college football there is more value. Look at Trayvon Henderson. Look what he's getting. Look at Judkins when he came from Ole Miss to Ohio State. Those guys got top dollar to move around. Damian Martinez takes off from Oregon State to Miami. That's a kid we know really well out of Louisville. He got paid. So actually, that's a valid point. I think AR is onto something. That's a good viewer.
You won't find running backs ranked in let me put it this way. You won't find running backs picked in the top 5 of the draft anymore.
No.
Unless it's like imagine
Adrian
this.
Peterson is the only one you would see that.
Yeah, it would take someone a better Bijan for an NFL team to pick that player in the top 5 of the draft. Like that's the level it takes. You will still see running backs within the top 5 of like recruiting rankings. Not terribly often, but more often than you would in the top 5 of the draft.
A guy like Harlem Berry.
Yeah, like he's on his way.
That's a Jamal Charles clone. Okay, that kid is going to be special, but they are rare. He is rare.
And think about it this way also. Salary cap league. I know college football has like a practical cap of sorts at this point, just because money's not limitless. Money's almost limitless in the NFL, but they have a salary cap. You can only pay so many guys. The floor of talent, unless you're, I don't know what team to take a dump on real quick, but the floor of talent is so high to where, yeah, your system often defines your running backs. If you have Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Bijan Robinson, those type of players, like they can be a difference maker against bad defenses to where they are super valuable. So
hey, Chris Bennett has something that I think is interesting. Are we going to see a tailback at Texas get 1,200 carries again?
No, they'll leave before then.
Right. That's kind of, because now it doesn't help them to stay. Actually, and it doesn't hurt them because of NIL, but it doesn't because it starts that clock a year quicker, which gets you to that second contract a year quicker, which gets you to pension a year quicker. And after 25, 26, NFL owners are dumping running backs. It is the worst position in the NFL. You turn 26 years old, you're at the height of your male athletic prowess, and buddy, you just got cut. The only thing in your bank account is the guarantee from that contract. And so I think those days of Cedric Benson eating carries for 4 years, those days are gone, guys.
Same kind of with a wide receiver. Like, I'm curious, and we're about to jump into SEC talk. Like, I'm very curious what the next like big offensive record that's going to be broken at Texas is. Like, Quinn most likely not going to be here long enough to break Colts records. Yeah. And it took from Major all the way to Colt to break passing records. And the only person who then somewhat approached Colts passing records was Sam. It took from Roy Williams and then to Jordan Shipley to Xavier Worthy for someone to approach receiving records. And rushing's a little different. Like Bijan, of course, is going to be one of the best this program has ever seen. He's in the top 5 in rushing yards. And, if he did the thing like Ricky did and came back for a 4th year, he's not passing Ricky. And remember, he had a COVID shortened 2020. But at the same time, like, he probably passes Earl Campbell as the number 2 rusher of all time.
Yeah.
So the 3 and out thing, which I get, I'm never going to fault anybody for it unless it's like, dude, you're wasting a lot of money right now by going early. I'm never gonna fault it, but it's going to change how we look at UT records. So season records maybe
the next big positional record change is going to be wide receiver, because look, there was no Texas records before 1998 at receiving. There were none.
Yeah, wishbone, I formation.
None.
Guys,
Wayne McGarity was the very first 1,000-yard receiver in the history of Texas football, and it took him 100 and something years to do that. Roy Williams came in after that, but there is still a gap there in the receiving that I think a Ryan Wingo, I think a young guy that gets on the field that plays for 3 full years can make a run at.
Right. I think Arch Manning can make a run at Colts records.
I mean,
Basically,
he's going to throw for 50 touchdowns for the next 2 years.
And
I'm here for it, Ian.
I'm sold.
I'm here for it. I love your vision. I see it. We're there.
he's not done piling up some stats in this year either.
He's gonna add 10 or 15 touchdowns this year. I think you're right.
But he's also you rack up yards and touchdowns faster throwing post routes than you do throwing Y stick to Jordan Shipley. So
It's a good point. All right, you want to talk about some SEC football, because this is the first
Let's do it.
big week, I feel like. But we'll start with we'll eat our vegetables first. Kentucky at Ole Miss. I don't really want to say this is Ole Miss' first big test, but it's probably the best team they faced, and it's not saying much. They're still 17.5-point favorites.
This is Ole Miss' first test. I don't know, but I don't know if it's going to be one of those Scantron tests, if it's going to be oral tests. I'm not sure. But I think Kentucky will punch him in the mouth, and then Ole Miss will gather themselves in the second half.
The one thing about this, 11 a.m. in Oxford,
Mimosas.
that crowd rarely gets up, and they rarely leave their tailgates early. But I don't know if it means enough to affect how Kentucky operates, because they don't do much on offense anyway.
Mimosas. Come on, guys.
In real Waterford
The
Crystal,
champion.
too.
Hotty toddy.
I know.
You gotta love a school that their sign, their logo, their thing is have a good drink. Have a drink.
It's evolved and for the better, but yes, that's what it is now.
Have a drink.
What
There's a contingent of Ole Miss people in Joe, that are that they're kind of obnoxious. I'm just gonna be honest. There's a strong contingent around here about that.
What about I know we gave some thoughts on it, but OU at Auburn, is it a battle of which quarterback doesn't mess up?
This is going to be the Jaron Thompson game.
Oh man, that'd be something if you got like can you imagine, Justin, if like early in the game Hawkins is trying to go for the pylon or something, and we see Jaron Thompson like remove him from the game,
or pop the ball out, scoop and score the other way.
That would really be something, just on a number of levels.
Trust me, Jaron Thompson still wants to beat OU as much as he did the last 3 years.
Here's the thing that we have to notice, and I gave our friends over at Sooner Scoop a listen to their post-game podcast, and I think either Carrie or Eddie goes like, guys, there's still, like, for all the flaws, They're still 3-1. Like there's a lot of flaws, but they are still 3-1.
That is so Eddie.
If they drop to 3-2, then it's like, okay, Red River, like their schedule doesn't set up particularly well for them. So this is no, I don't think they're must-win games, but I think it's a must-win in terms of if Oklahoma, as unreasonable as it may sound right now, wants to still be a playoff contender, they have to win this game. I know.
You set that one up perfectly.
I had that. I'm glad I got a reaction out of it.
You know what? I like that OU is
Playoffs.
Some bruisers. They have to hit Tennessee. Then they got to hit Auburn before they play the Red River Shootout. I love that Oklahoma has to go through somewhat of a gauntlet.
Joe, they need this game for bowl eligibility.
There we go. That's what I wanted to hear.
Can you imagine if they lose this game and then they got 2 weeks before Texas?
Do they have a bye also?
Both teams have a bye, which is going to be pretty cool.
Now, that's how you conference. That's how you conference.
It's going to be.
What do y'all think of that? Oklahoma 2.5. I saw that and I'm like Auburn right away.
They really need Hawkins to show well in this game so that they can just pump themselves up for 2 weeks and get in the right Oklahoma frame of mind for playing Texas. If they lose this game and Hawkins is injured or doesn't play well, then it's going to be a tough scene in Norman. 2 weeks of Texas looming. It's a sword of Damocles.
Sword of Damocles.
If Oklahoma wins, there's definitely more of a build-up.
Yeah.
There's more momentum for those guys because then they
ranked,
see.
Right? Aren't they still in the top 25 at least?
Really?
So.
That's funny.
I'm not sure, but it definitely adds more flavor to the Red River. This one's going to be interesting right here, Arkansas and A&M, because A&M has basically owned this series since it started in Jerry World, and I think this might be the last year or the next to last year that they have it at AT&T. That game right there, the team that wins that game is going to be the sneaky trap for Texas in 2 months.
I'm with you. I think what we thought, and a lot of it depends on Taylon Green, and I'm about to check the injury report for Arkansas. But like a lot of what we thought about Kentucky and them being like a plucky upstart team and like a team to watch out for, I think actually applies to Arkansas. I'm curious what y'all think of that.
I don't really watched them closely yet.
Scoring.
I don't have a good read on them. I'll probably wait till this game to make better judgment.
Taylon Green can make plays. The quarterback they've been using can make plays, and then they yanked him last week. So
he's not on the injury report. So Taylon Green. They yanked him for effectiveness, not for injury, right?
Effectiveness, yeah, it was like consecutive turnovers.
Right.
I think they were playing hot potato with the ball for like 45 seconds. There was like 4 turnovers in that span, and so I think they were just trying to calm him down a little bit. And he's much more of a power runner anyway. But when he's clicking, we saw at Boise when he's clicking, he's pretty good. And Jaquindon, I don't ever put anything past Jaquindon Jackson. Like I think he's an NFL running back one day. Then again, who's going to start at quarterback for A&M? Is it going to be Weigman?
Weigman is listed as questionable, and I think the ship sailed for him. Unfortunately,
do you think? See, I don't know. I'm curious about that as well, because that's a similar situation to Jackson Arnold and Norman, and so that's something to watch because they put all their eggs in that basket from the start of the Elko era, and to change that fast, that quick, like that. Ooh.
Well, he hurt his shoulder, right?
He did, yeah.
I think he got like a separated shoulder. I don't know the degree of it. Maybe
didn't know
more
it
like
was
Separated knocks you out for weeks.
I was about to say,
Strained, you
I don't
can
think
play
it was
through.
separated.
well, it's the AC joint, whatever. I think it might have been akin to what happened to Ellinger in 2018 or something like that.
You can play through a strain. You can't play through a separation.
I think it sounds like maybe he could be playing, but they kind of want to give Reed a chance. So
At this point, if you're A&M and you're winning with Reed, you may not want to mess with that right now.
yeah,
I think they're at that stage.
I think he. The
And
fact
Reed's
that he
more than
can
capable.
run, the fact that Reed can run is really helpful for them right now.
Do y'all
Any
think
offense in
there's
college
a-
football that can't score points, if they got a quarterback that can run, gives them a chance.
Yep.
Do y'all think there's a Petrino factor in this one at all?
Like he's going to take it to A&M for giving him a year of
Jimbo?
salary
Or
Yeah, let's
having
say-
having insight at all?
insight. No, probably not. Because Elko is transformed.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
He probably bought a new bike.
Oh, I can't.
He's probably waiting to
transition
see
out of that.
what talent's coming through at Arkansas.
We've obviously talked about Mississippi State at Texas a lot, but
I like
this
Texas.
is the game of the weekend, and it'll have a presidential presence. It's
Yeah.
a huge game for. I think it's a bigger game for Kalen DeBoer than it is for Kirby Smart, but it's still a massive, massive game in the SEC.
Presidential. So you're telling me somebody's going to be there?
Yes, somebody's
El
going to be
Moranye.
there. So get there early if you're going to Tuscaloosa. I mean, this is going to be an awesome game, but this is
I think Alabama's a little bit better. Call me crazy. I think Jalen Milroe is the difference in this game. I think him and DeBoer have done pretty well together. And so I just think Alabama people are wondering about DeBoer, and this is the game that they think, okay, this will tell us, which it won't. It'll just be a side note. But I like Bama, guys. I just think Milroe is playing at a high level right now.
Yeah, I might agree. I just don't know if I don't know if Georgia is their wide receivers are down, it feels like. Their philosophy at that position, I think, is wrong. They've just gotten away with it.
Yeah, Lad McConkey isn't walking through that door anymore.
Yeah,
Nor is Brock Bowers.
I don't know if their defensive line is like
It's not what it was when Kirby went back to back.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think it's that. I don't know where it is in relation to last year, but I don't know if it's enough better to be like safe in this game. And my only question mark with Alabama is that secondary still. So
Yeah.
this is going to be a very interesting game. I don't really have a good feel. Where are you leaning on this one, Joe?
I'm not sure if Alabama can. Here's the thing: it's Kalen DeBoer, who's I think a little bit better offensive coach against an offense put together by Mike Bobo. I know he's not facing off with Mike Bobo, but you got Kalen DeBoer on one hand, Mike Bobo on the other, and then you've got Kirby Smart on one hand and Glenn Schumann, and then Kane Womack on the other. So, like, the better
I love
coordinator in each battle is very visible. It's just who wins those battles more. And we know that football these days is about explosive plays. Alabama, I just feel like, has more explosive play capability.
Georgia doesn't have the skill guys they had 2 years ago either.
But I feel like also Alabama has more explosive play capability on both sides. They can go for the 70-yard touchdown and they can give one up. So,
Yeah.
like, it's
Good call.
a fascinating game. Honestly, whoever wins this game has I know this is tough to say on this channel, but like whoever wins this game has a very good claim to being the number one team in the country. I don't think there's
Sure.
anything wrong with saying that.
There's not. There's not.
It would
there's
take a
another
lot
team
of,
that there's another team that could also be undefeated that defeated the defending champions in their own building. So
that is true. But is Michigan as good as either of these teams? And I know I'm
Maybe.
being devil's advocate here.
maybe we don't really totally know yet.
Yeah, like I think Michigan's defense stacks up with both of these squads.
If
They're probably like a bit of a notch below because they don't have a quarterback. Kind of a tough deal, but
I think if the like explosive play battle is a stalemate, Georgia wins this by 2 touchdowns. If like in a low number, but if like Bama can rattle off 2 or 3, find Ryan Williams, find guys like that. If Milroe goes on a long run, I think Bama gets this one in a close one.
I think Milroe's the difference.
what if both teams play in the teens?
Georgia.
Yeah. Then it goes to the kicking game.
I don't. They have a good kicker.
Bama does. I don't know if Georgia
Miami.
does.
Bama does. Didn't they take Miami, Ohio's?
The Lou Groza Award winner. And then Major at LSU.
He's going home.
Alabama can score.
He's going home, Joe. That's where Major's from.
I thought he's from
Baton Rouge.
I thought he's from Shreveport. That's where Evangel is.
He didn't go to Evangel.
Where'd he
Major's
go?
from Shreveport. He went to, he's from Baton Rouge.
Okay.
He didn't go to Evangel. You're thinking John David Booty.
You're right. I mean,
Brock Berlin.
that's what I'm thinking of. That's a big question. 21 in the hook for LSU.
South Alabama's gonna score some points.
Yeah. Hey,
LSU's defense is good. They have athletes, but they're not LSU defense of the last 4 or 5 years. I feel like they've progressively gotten worse up front.
is this the show where I said the position that Harold Perkins belongs in is on the bench?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, he's there by default now. And don't be shocked if it helps LSU's defense. Don't be shocked.
Them trying not to fit him in rather than just plugging a guy in that fits seamlessly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Golly.
I get it. You're
The
right.
stuff they do to try to yeah.
You know what? If I were to put money on this one, I'd probably take LSU. Now it's going to hit the over, but a 645 kick at Tiger Stadium for South Alabama is going to be
brutal,
something tough.
Yep.
So this one may be like 53-30. I don't even know how you get to 52-30. There we go.
Long as Fluff Bothwell hits pay dirt, we're all satisfied.
Everybody's a fan of that. Nothing really important on bye.
Hey, bye week ain't never played nobody, Joe.
It's weird. 1, 2,
Literally.
5 teams in the SEC, and it's just because they're playing a non-conference game. Because who'd they play to start things? Oh yeah, they won at South Carolina.
Who's the sneakiest team on that list? Real quick, who's the sneakiest team on that bye list?
On Texas schedule or in general?
Just in general. I think it's Tennessee.
They're not sneaky though. They're
There's
top
some
10
growing
team.
sentiment that they may be the best team in the SEC. I can't wait to kind of see how that whole thing plays out.
I feel less and less like that's the case. But
Really?
I picked them to go like 8-1 in the SEC in the preseason. I think they'll lose 1 or 2 SEC games.
That's a team I can see making a playoff run.
Yeah.
If they hit the right notes. They got an unbelievable defense. Amaliva is getting better every game.
Yeah. They need to get healthy at offensive line because they're not that great there. And they were missing some guys against Oklahoma, and it hurt.
They're
Is
missing
Andre
their left
Garrett
tackle.
still there?
Carrick is still there.
Left guard. Hurd is hurt or has been hurt.
Yep.
And he's pretty dang good. What this is setting up for is a fantastic month of October. Like Tennessee, if Alabama wins this game and Tennessee keeps winning, that's going to set up one of the best third Saturdays in October.
Is that in Neyland too?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's going to be a madhouse. So should be a lot of fun. A lot of fun in the SEC this week. Game day will be at Bama. I wonder what's going to happen whenever Saban gets welcomed back, and it should be good. So, all right, guys, 71 minutes of awesome SEC, Texas, a little bit of Oklahoma talk as well. So if you're here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so yet, head to InsideTexas.com, join us over there. Use a promo code IT1. Get yourself 2 months of access for just $1. Thank you to our sponsor, Andre the Lawyer. Thank you for watching. Ian, Justin, thank y'all. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.